So in this workbook that I've sent to you, the full workbook contains everything you need essentially to produce your event. I've been working in this industry now for more than 20 years, not to share too much of my age, but I actually didn't know it was a thing when I first started doing events. When I was actually producing conferences, I was producing multi-day, multifaceted, highly complex conferences for key stakeholders in an organisation, and I didn't even know that was a job. I didn't know that it was something that people did as a career. And at the time, I also didn't realise the risk associated with getting things wrong. The only thing I really remember about that time is a boss saying to me, "Don't ever make a fool of me," because I'd made a mistake in a speech. I had to write a speech for him. And as he was saying the speech, he stumbled and he just looked up across the room and stared at me with this horrible look on his face. And then he kept going and absolutely ripped me a new one afterwards, because apparently I'd made a fool of him with a typo that had been made in the speech. And so that kind of created a bit of a journey for me, in that I don't want anybody else to feel like that. I want people to realise that this is a skill. There's an order in which to do things. If you do them in that order and focus on the right things, the right outcome will always happen. So that's kind of where the culmination of this workbook has come to. I started it 3 years ago, and I started it because I was working in a venue where community members would come to the venue and want to put their events on. And the first question I needed to talk to them about was a risk assessment. I'd have to ask them what sort of risk assessment they had conducted in relation to their event. And of course, no one ever does a risk assessment. No one ever wants to think about what might go wrong. So then we would start to talk about their event, and I would help them do a risk assessment. And it just made me realise that people just don't think through, or don't know how to think through, all of the steps it takes to put on any kind of event, whether it be a community festival, a meeting, an annual general meeting, for example, even the simplest of things that need procedure, need process, that people weren't thinking through all of those steps. And in particular, they weren't thinking about the audience. So my goal for you and this workbook and this kind of work that I'm doing in this program is to give you the tools to create the logistics easily, so they get done and dusted and put to the side. So you've done all of that thinking. It's all of the setup that's going to take the time. And I had a bit of an epiphany today, actually. I've been watching a series on Netflix, which is The Movies That Made Us. And one of the episodes that I watched was Pretty Woman. And Pretty Woman apparently had two versions. I didn't know this, but there was two versions to Pretty Woman. And they talk about creating this particular version and then having to make major changes and go and reshoot all of this content. But the guy says, but it actually didn't take us as long as the first time around. And that's because you've done the planning, you've done the creative work. The stuff that goes on in your mind, that's the thing that takes the time. That's the thing that it really sets you up for an effective outcome. Excuse me. So that's what this part of the first part of the workbook does. So I would really encourage you to go through this process. Try not to skip it. I know it feels a bit like a company mission and a company vision statement and those things that go on the front of annual reports that no one ever reads. But if you do this and then keep reminding yourself of what these things are as you go through your event planning process, you'll have a much better outcome for your audience. So the first thing that I want you to think about is the purpose. So why are you doing this activity? So think about the event that you want to produce or the gathering that you want to produce. And then this could be online, it could be face-to-face, it could be a small meeting, it could be a sport event. a wedding, a family gathering. You know, you might have a family reunion coming up, anything like that. It's really important to think about the purpose. And I was delighted, actually. I was delighted to recently find this book. I totally recommend that you go and get this book. It's called The Art of Gathering, How We Meet and Why It Matters. It's by Priya Parker, P-R-I-Y-A Parker, Priya Parker. Now, the reason this is a really good book is because she talks about purpose the whole way through. I did do a video earlier in the week explaining that I was pretty offended when I first started reading this, because the very first chapter of this book, she says something along the lines of an event planner not worrying about purpose. So I read that and went, well, I'm not going to read anymore because you clearly don't know who we are as event planners. But I pushed through, and it's a really, really good book. But it talks about why you gather. And she's got some great tips, even when it comes to family dinners, like just to make things just better, to make them better. They're just not process oriented. So can I suggest that you take a couple of minutes just to think about your event and the purpose? So why are you doing this activity? Why is it imperative that you do this activity? And just share this information with yourself through the medium of an event. So why does this, whatever it is that you want to do, why does it have to be an event? And whilst I would love everybody to do events all of the time, I'd really like you to think about why this particular activity that you want to do needs to be an event. So you're welcome to turn your cameras off if you want to. I want to give you just 5 minutes to spend writing a couple of lines out about the purpose of your activity and why you want to do it as an event. So I'm going to do the same thing. I've got a conference coming up, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing. And I'm going to turn my camera off. I might just stop sharing my screen here. So, so with the purpose, I wanted to share with you the journey I went through with my purpose. I'm producing a conference for people like you. So I've got something called the Event Planners Collective that I am producing, which was meant to be in October this year, but COVID is pushing us back further and further all the time. So at the moment, it's scheduled for February next year, and we'll just see how that rolls out. We'll talk about COVID a little bit later, but I initially came up with the purpose for my conference to share my knowledge. It was pretty simple. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to share my knowledge with people. But then I started to ask myself, well, why? Why do I want to share my knowledge? Who cares? Like what, you know, again, we're attaching ego to this. So then I thought, well, to give people the tools to be able to produce better events, because there's a lot of people out there that don't have the tools to really produce effective events. But again, I kind of went, well, why? Why is that my job? Why should I care about that? And why should they care about me? And eventually I came to the real crux of what it is that I want to do, and that's to create an environment where the audience gets a better experience. So whilst I love you, I don't care about you, I care about your audience. I really want your audience to have a better experience. So if I can give you the skills through this collective, networking with other people, giving you actual skills to take away and showing you what an effective event looks like, that's possibly a lot different to what you've experienced before, then hopefully you'll take that away and you'll give your audience a better experience. So that's actually the purpose of my collective. So we've gone from just surface level share knowledge to go, oh, okay, well, it's to give people the tools, through to, no, actually, I want audiences to have a better experience. So cool. So that would be why do you think it needs to be an event as opposed to an ad in a paper, a video on YouTube? So you could show the venue visually on a YouTube video, you could pop an ad, a Google ad all over the place. So why do you think an event will give you a different outcome to those other kind of advertising spends, do you think? Yeah, so it's the connection. So it's like a 3D experience or 4D experience, and that's what people want, and that's what ingrains in our mind. So they need to come and feel what it's like. So you want people to feel what it's like to be in this space. So that's why it needs to be like that and not just an ad in a paper or a video. Have a good time. So here's an example of the difference between hosting an event and doing something else. I had an experience recently where I took 3 potential clients to out to lunch to a function that somebody else was organising. Now that cost me, I think it cost me about $450 to take those 3 potential clients to this event that somebody else was putting on, as opposed to me putting on an event to have the opportunity to attract those 3 clients. Now, if I put on an event, it's going to cost me a couple of $1,000. Whereas if I go to an event, it's going to cost me, $500. So the whole concept of having a good time, you can do that in a variety of different ways, and it doesn't need to cost you a lot of money. So you don't need to put a big complicated event on to build community and educate people. You can do that. Like, people are happy often to come along and just pay for themselves for that kind of thing as well. So I guess just to jump quickly into, don't get caught up with how much is it going to cost me? I have to book a venue, I have to provide food, and I have to provide beverages. Because if you're hosting a networking event or something like that, often people are quite happy to buy their own drinks as well. If they don't have to pay an entry fee and your purpose really is to help people get together, I do this with the Event Managers Network. I host events at the Brisbane Club on a regular basis, and I just facilitate the space. Facilitate the space. I invite the people to come, and it's a cash bar. They just pay for their own drinks. They buy their own food. And it doesn't cost me any money at all, but it still enables me to facilitate what I want to do. Excuse me. So I would just get you to think about that, Oksana. So your purpose really is to get them to take action.
That's it.
The reason this is an event is to get them to take action. So when you're thinking about everything you're creating around your event, that's what you want at the top. Take action. So every decision you have to make, you need to ask yourself, will this drive the person to take action? Yes or no? No, ditch it. It's gone. We don't need it. Yes, it will. Cool. Let's book that in.
Yeah.
We can get so caught up in venue selection, menu selection, things that, like, I've got an agenda here that I want to share with you, but at the end of the day, this is a conversation that we're having, and there's stuff on this agenda that is not going to get talked about because it doesn't matter to the conversation that's happening now. So keep in mind at all times the purpose, the reason why people are coming to your event. And it's really like that's a great reason to just keep at the top of mind all the time, Andrew, is that they could read a book. It's like this. You can go and do a TAFE course if you wanted to. You could go and do a TAFE course on event planning. Well, Melissa's done it. And you can learn the specifics. You can get the tools and the templates and all of that kind of thing to learn how to plan an event. But I think the thing I bring to the table is I get you to think about more than just the logistics and the purpose, and I give you something to latch onto, but then I also help you with your mindset along the way, because it's a lot of investment, it's a lot of time, there's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of emotion attached to events. So I'm the person that will help you with that all along the way, whether I'm doing an event for you or supporting you in your event planning. So it's really important to understand why. What I want to talk about is audience. So the fun thing about audience is we have an idea of who we think is either going to come or we want to come to our event. And rarely is the person that you think wants the information that you have to share or the kind of event that you want to share is the person that actually wants to show up for you. Example of this is I've been doing market research, and Carolina has been an awesome subject of my market research recently. But I actually started that journey thinking I was going to talk to people like Elise. Elise, I wanted EAs. I don't know what your role is. I'm sorry if I get that wrong, but I thought I was going to serve people working inside of organisations who had suddenly been tasked with producing major events for their company. The language I was using, the design I was using was all targeted towards the corporate sector. I was meeting with PAs to CEOs, trying to get them on board so we could get CEOs on board so I could run this program out into the corporate sector. I was doing a program where I was encouraged to do market research, and I started doing this market research. And I've now spoken to about 40 people. And I can tell you that 30 of them are highly experienced, well-versed in event planning. They've been producing major events for tens of thousands of people all around the world, but they still needed and wanted things that they wanted to know, which I thought was really cool. I didn't think I would actually get to serve them at all. So when it comes to audience, you want to think about not only who you're hoping to reach, who you think you've got the information for, but really just be open-minded about who that might be. So don't discount other people. And the reason I say this is because there's a huge trend at the moment to look for your ICA or ideal customer avatar, which is the marketing buzz, and certainly do that. Like, you want to market to one particular kind of person, but I also see a lot of people being closed off to the rest. So they're kind of missing that part where they just need to do campaigns focused on particular kinds of people. So let's just take a minute. We'll just take 2 minutes, just detailing who your audience is. So if you can paint a bit of a picture as to who you're trying to reach, educate, transform, or entertain with your event, and just try and describe them in detail. You might want to take a minute to just close your eyes and visualize your event in action. So then you can sort of get to see what these people look like arriving, interacting with other people, that kind of thing. So hopefully you had some time to do that experience. So I'll share mine first, and then if you want to come on and share yours, you're welcome to. So my Event Managers Network Collective, initially, of course, you know, we always have the first answer that comes into our head, and it's normally a surface level answer. And my audience was DIY and amateur event planners. That's who I want to serve. I've got knowledge to share. So those people need my knowledge. So therefore, that's what I'm going to share with them. But if we drill down further and we continue to ask ourselves why, it's actually the person that wants more meaning from their gathering. Experience doesn't matter. I don't care how, and this is what's come out of the market research, I don't care how experienced you are or inexperienced you are. Experience is irrelevant, but they really care about their audience and they want to engage. So that's the kind of person that I want to come to my collective. And so therefore I will build a program around engagement. My whole program will be about how to have more effective, more engaging, and enhanced meetings, events, conferences, parties, festivals, all of that kind of thing. So okay, so I would encourage you to think about, Carolina, why are they going to pick your place over the next property next door or in Byron Bay or any of those other places? So yeah, having a very clear idea of, you know, let's pick music video producers for one. What is it about a particular type of music video producer that's going to want to come to your property? So I know from working in venues and just doing ad shoots and that kind of thing, there's particular things that go down very well if they're attended to. Hospitality, very, very simple. We don't think about it, but that's why it matters, because a lot of people don't think about hospitality in terms of the audience. They worry about, well, what do I want to eat? What do I want to drink? That kind of thing. But even the option of having hospitality available in your industry and the quality of that hospitality and making sure that it's not a cheese platter, it's not buckets of Coke, Coca-Cola, that is, not cocaine, Coca-Cola. Like understanding.
Here's a barrel of Coke.
That would be fun. But understanding.
Wrong decade.
But understanding your audience really well, you know, like I know from my experience in the music industry, fresh food, healthy options, like making that assumption that not all musos are beer drinking, rum swilling, you know, hamburger eating bands.
Yeah.
A lot of venues do, you know.
I know.
Well, I know you know because you're a performer yourself, you're an artist yourself. And my event is a social event for ladies 21 plus. The purpose is providing a safe, fun, non-judgmental space to make new friends. It is harder to make friends as an adult, so you're creating a space to facilitate and help with that. Oh, that's gorgeous. My events are aimed at 21 plus, but I think it would most likely be 30 to 50 age bracket. Well, I guess the challenge for you is that demographic is very much online. And so are you wanting to get them offline? You want to do it in person or have it online?
Yeah, definitely do it in person, because actually I think that like face-to-face is really important to build like strong friendships, and that's what I'm hoping it's going to be. It's not just going to be like a one time. It's like the idea is to make friends and then like make lasting friendships.
Yeah. A little challenging to measure. So a purpose, ideally you want to be able to measure whether you succeeded or not. Friendships are so transient that you might find that, oh yeah, I succeeded this month because, you know, 10 people made new friendships, but then they hate each other in 3 months' time. So try and come up with some purpose that you can measure, at least measure from time to time whether you're successful. And I don't mean like data, you know, numbers and being very specific about measuring, but just being able to ask yourself in 3 months' time, was I successful with what I was able to do with my purpose? And if you can't figure it out, then you need to sort of find a drill down deeper is what I'm trying to say into your why. Very quickly, we're going to work on objective and outcome. So we're going to do these together. Often people think these are one and the same thing. They're not actually one and the same thing. It all fits together, but they're very different things. So the objective is what you're expecting to achieve from conducting this activity. So the purpose is your vision. So if we talk corporate speak, your purpose is your vision. Your objective is your mission, like what are you hoping to achieve here? And then the outcome is the specific bits and pieces that you want to achieve. So an objective, what do you want your guests, audience, participants to get out of having this interaction with you? Consider the specific outcomes you envision you and your guests to get from this experience. So the outcome is those SMART, S-M-A-R-T, measurable, attainable, so specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals that you want people to have. So do we want to take another minute just to work out our objective and our outcome? So we have our purpose, that's our big overarching goal of why we're doing what we're doing. We know who we're doing it for. So now what we want to articulate is what do we want that person to get out of it? So Melissa, you've said that you want people to get new friendships out of it. So your purpose essentially is to help people have better relationships. And what that means for you is that you want 21 plus. So 21 plus is a pretty broad, you know, there's a lot of people in that group. So you might want to start with 21 to 25, for example, or 21 to 30. And you might start just, again, like I said before, it's just about campaigns. It's not about, oh, this is what my business is now. It's just campaigns. And so you might go, all right, well, my objective is to produce events for 21 to 30-year-olds that give them the opportunity to meet new people with a view to reaching your overarching purpose of creating great relationships with people. And then the outcome of that is very specific. So they're 21 to 30. I'm going to hold, you know, I want them to have, you know, by the time, if they're monthly events, for example, you might say something like, well, I want them to have had 3, in inverted commas, dates before they come to the next one. So I don't know if you're going to facilitate specific, like, dating for friendships, though. I don't know if that's what's in your mind, but they're the kind of things that you want to think about.
Okay.
Because if you just throw a bunch of people together and go, yay, make friends. And I promise you, I've done that. I'm the kind of person that I have very diverse friendship groups. And I remember once, 20 years ago now, I thought they all should know each other. So I organised this big dinner party and I invited all of these friends to come, and I couldn't believe the arguments. It blew my mind. I couldn't believe. I'm like, why wouldn't that person get along with that person? And I was really surprised that there was people that didn't get along with each other. So shall we take a minute to just think about that? Often what happens here, and I think this is a great example of it, Carolina, and I've done exactly the same thing, our purpose and objective get switched around. So if you flip both of those things that you said before, what you just said now is actually your purpose, and what you said before is actually your objective.
Objective. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I've done exactly the same thing. The first thing I wrote down was to encourage people to really think about their audience and the experience that people have. And then I went, actually, no, that's not very measurable. So, okay, so it's to bring a diverse group together who are interested in creating a greater audience experience. But as you can see, the first thing I said was, actually, no, that's my purpose.
Yeah.
The greater purpose now. So this is ever evolving. It's ever evolving. So don't think you've written it once and there we go, we're done. It is something that is evolving all the time. Cool. So you might want to think about switching those around. Did you get to outcome? Did you have any time to look at some specific outcomes? I think that's a great point that you're making, that you're thinking much further down the track. So I would encourage others to do the same. Think about your overall business goal. If you're producing an event that is for your business, how does that fit into your company vision and mission activities that you've already done? And if you haven't done those, you can actually ask these same questions of a project, of a company, of an idea that you're about to launch into. So that really great points. Thanks, Deb.
Cool.
Really. So hopefully you've sort of seen the value there of just collaborating with other people too. So it's really important to share your ideas with some other people. Be careful of naysayers. So pick your audience very carefully when you do share your ideas with other people. And ideally, just 1 or 2 people that you can grow that idea with. So you certainly want people that have, the art of possibility as a mindset. It's not that we live in the clouds, but we certainly want to be solution focused. We want to have a positive attitude, and we want people to have a possible mindset around the event planning, as opposed to a mindset where they just shoot down everything that you say. So be careful about who you pick for that. So the next thing I want to talk about, we don't have a lot of time left, but the next thing I want to talk about is, again, in the workbook, and this is starting to now take that information that you've just created. And I know that feels like an arduous task, but like any good project, the setup is critical. So if you get the setup right, you get this part right, you spend that time working on the purpose, the audience, the objective, and the outcome, the rest of it will be really easy to fill in along the way. So I'm just going to share my screen again with you to look at the design part of this workbook. We'll just have the design part in it, but you can launch from the design part. So, the whole idea to launch title, I suppose you would call it, is because it's kind of got that whole lean startup method about it. I want you to know what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and what you hope to get out of it. And then this design part takes that information, starts to break it down into specific areas. And by the time you finish this design bit, you can actually launch your event. You can get your tickets on sale, your registrations open, invitations out, all of those kind of things. You can get it launched from here because you've got enough to get it started. And sometimes just getting it launched is enough to get the momentum going and helping you, like all of a sudden, well, I'm stuck now. I have to do this thing because I've advertised it. I've put it out in a paper. I've launched it online. I've started my Facebook group. In Lisa's case, we've booked the venue. We're doing it. There's no backing out now. It's all happening. So, so this section here, we're looking at the content, including the topic, format, and presenters. So I'll just go through this really quickly. It's pretty easy to follow. There's just a few key points that I want to point out for you though. So I like to use a storytelling narrative because that's what I remember and that's what other people remember as well. So using a storytelling narrative, consider the following questions about your vision for your event. I like to do visualization. So I say in here, begin by spending a moment with your eyes closed and visualizing your event in action. I encourage you to try and do visualization with your event as often as you possibly can. I try and do mine every day, but certainly when you're planning. So when you sit down to start working on your event, and again, I would encourage you to set aside a specific time every week. So with this design section, so first of all, sit down and you visualize your event in action. Even if you don't have it all together, just picture, use your memory for events you've been to before, the inspiration for your own event. And then you start to think about the topic of your presentation, event, conference, or meeting, and describe the format you'll be delivering it in and who the presenters will be and what they will talk about. And this is just high level. This is what I want to happen. This is what I wish could happen. If this was my event, money was no object, time was no object, location, COVID, forget all of the barriers that we put around everything. Just start to dream about what you want your event to be. So the content is obviously the topic. What's the overarching topic for your event? Now I've got entertainment in here, but that could also mean speakers, any kind of activity that's happening on stage in front of people. So will it include entertainment? If so, describe the entertainment you want, where you might find them, what else you might need, and any associated resources. Again, don't bound yourself up in budget, location. If you want Bruce Springsteen, get Bruce Springsteen. Like, that's what you write down, because you'll find, even if you go, well, I've only got a budget of $100, you'll end up finding a soloist who's a tribute act for Bruce Springsteen songs. Like, you'll get your Bruce Springsteen, but you've got to visualize it first. The environment. So thinking about your purpose and objective, you need to think about the environment that you need to build. So you also have to think about your audience here as well, but what is the layout? So the environment impacts the outcome of what it is that you're producing. Now, this is where I encourage you to go back to the statement you made about your audience and really try and put yourself in their shoes and understanding those people are going to get uncomfortable. And if someone's uncomfortable, they're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about what you're doing or sharing or talking about. They're thinking about, oh God, my back's killing me. Oh gee, they're just worried about their position. So that's number one. They have to be comfortable and they have to be happy. Another thing to think about that is also a bugbear of mine is when you have a networking event, which is a standing event, and there's 45 minutes worth of speeches in that event. Now, as a woman, you've got a handbag, you're trying to hold a drink, you're trying to eat some food. There's all sorts of things going on. And you've got to do that for 45 minutes, which is really quite difficult to do. So if you're going to have speeches for 45 minutes, Ideally, have an area of theatre style seating if you can. So the environment's really important to think about. What do you want people to take away from this? Do they need to be really immersed in this? Or is it just something where it doesn't matter if they keep chatting? Refreshments and catering. Resist the temptation to think about what you like to eat and what you want to drink. Again, I will drag you back to your audience. And think about your audience more diversely than you may have in the past. There are male vegetarians and vegans out there. That's probably number one. Not all men eat steak and potato. But again, think about, what do you want these people to do, particularly if it's a whole day thing. So your morning tea, lunch and afternoon tea. If you're doing a whole day workshop, you really don't want to fill people up on scones and jam and cream and all that kind of stuff at morning tea. If you expect them to do some brain work, you know, for the rest of the afternoon, if they're going to be there all afternoon. So think about food as fuel as opposed to taste, for starters, if you're doing something where it actually needs to nourish the person to keep working through the rest of the day. But if it's a celebration, again, think about it as celebration food. What do we eat when we celebrate? You know, if we're all sitting around a table together, again, take all of the barriers out of your mind. Don't go, oh, well, I can't have a buffet because it's COVID. Just say, I want a buffet. I want a buffet at my event, or I want shared platters at my event because I want my audience to be able to do this. I want people to build friendships. So, Melissa, you know, you want people to be standing around talking at the food stations. I don't know if you've been to events where there's actual food stations around the place, but I love those because it's really like you're there for a purpose. So you can kind of weasel your way in, and then you just end up having a conversation with someone and you can talk about the great food that's there in front of you. So think about the food and beverage in terms of the whole purpose of the event, not just, oh, well, I like steak and fish, so I'm going to order the steak and fish as alternate drops. Production. So thinking about the show, what you need. Do you need a sound system, projector, stage, multimedia? So all of these things come into figuring out your budget. But, you know, knowing those things, like really thinking through every single element of your activity. So there's a few things there to help you think about what you want. But again, see it. If you walk the event, if you walk into the room and go, oh, I'm going to make a speech. Oh, wow. Yeah, if I'm making a speech, I need a microphone. Oh, do I have to share some information? Oh, I might need a screen behind me and a projector. And then you just start to make your manifest list that way. The theme. So reflecting on your purpose, describing how you're tying all the elements together and creating that theme. So this is about building memory for people. So it's the look, it's the feel, it's the sounds, it's the tastes, it's all of those things. Lisa's event's a great example of this. Psychedelic Sunday, there is just so much here about the 60s from the minute we start planning, what the poster looks like, what the language is, the website, when people get there, the food trucks that Lisa's bringing in. You know, they're all 60s retro-inspired food trucks. People are going to be completely immersed in this experience. So see if you can do this for a meeting. You can immerse people in this experience just from a meeting. So that is the design element done. So you could get that far and know why you're doing what you're doing, who you're doing it for, what you hope to get out of it, and what the specific objectives are, and exactly what is this going to look like. What is my program? What is my content? What does my environment need to look like? You can take this and go and pick a venue if you want to. It's not the order I recommend that you do it in, but you can. You can take this and pick a venue now. And you can essentially create your Facebook event, write up your invitation if you want to do invitations to people, whatever it is that you want to do to tell people your event is on and invite them to come to it. You can do it just by going to this step here.
It's got to be against the law to look this damn good.
It's time to get it done.
that program you've been working on, that workshop you've been dabbling in, that immersive retreat you've been dying to share, move into action if you want to deliver next year. Your knowledge will change your clients' lives when they immerse in an event with you, and the Event Planners Workshop shows you exactly how. My program shows you how to lock in the logistics quickly so you can focus on content creation and engagement. You'll use checklists and technology to improve your effectiveness and help you delegate, and avoid the pitfalls of not knowing what to do or even who to talk to. Imagine what it would be like if you knew every step to take and had checklists to follow and someone to call on for support. Having delivered more than 110 events to over 15,000 people, I've taken my 25 plus years of experience and created everything you need to take your event from idea to launch, and I help you do it. With my personal support and following my formula, your creativity thrives, you'll save money and time, and you will change the world. Now take that seed of an idea and start exploring. Click the button below and talk to me today. My program will get you from idea to launch in less time, for less money and more value. Click below to get in touch now.